This gentleman is Boris Romanchenko. The photograph comes from the Buchenwald and Mittelbau-Dora Memorials Foundation. Boris was born on the 20th of January 1926. His birthplace has been given as being near Sumi. His family were farmers and as such would have gone through the terrible famine that affected the southern parts of the Soviet Union and in particular Ukraine. Then Stalin's trying to push a policy of industrialization at any price through a flawed communist mentality chose to steal the food from farmers in order to bring it into the cities, resulting in the man-made famine known as the Holodor, which caused the deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. Unable to leave their districts by the Kremlin's army and the NKVD, people in the countryside had no other choice other than to choose between a bullet or to slowly starve. In 1939, the Kremlin formed an alliance with Nazi Germany, and during this time it attacked Poland, Finland, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania and Romania. This, of course, was no help to people such as the Romanchenko family. In 1941, Hitler broke the terms of his alliance with the Kremlin and attacked the Soviet Union. Boris Romanchenko turned 16 on the day that Reinhard Heydrich conveyed the Wannsee Conference and discussed how the Nazis were to murder all the Jews in Europe. By then, the region of Sumi had been under Nazi occupation for several months. Boris, like many others, was kidnapped to work as a slave labourer in the heart of the Reich. Boris said in 2014 that there was no chance of fleeing. Stalin had boasted of his alliance with Hitler, and when it all fell apart, Soviet citizens were given very little warning. In fact, in many places, the first thing that they knew was when the Nazis were driving through the town. Boris was deported to Dortmund in Germany's industrial Ruhr Valley to work as a slave labourer in a mine, although all he could offer was physical labour, having never been down a mine in his life. After some months, he attempted to escape, something that would have been extremely difficult given that he probably would not have been able to understand the train timetables. And of course, his clothing was marked, and he possibly didn't know many words in German anyway. As punishment, he was then deported to Buchenwald concentration camp in January 1943. From there, he was transferred to Peenemünde on the Baltic island of Usedom, where he was made to work on the V2 rocket program. On the night of the 17th to the 18th of August 1943, Peenemünde was hit by RAF bombers in an effort to thwart the Nazi missile program, which was then top secret, although Allied agents had got to learn of it. The raid involved 324 Lancasters, 218 Halifaxes and 54 Sterlings, and unfortunately, as well as hitting the military targets, also hit the barracks where the slave labourers were held, resulting in the deaths of some 500 to 600 of them. Production was then moved to the underground caves at Mittelbau-Dora, and Boris was one of those prisoners sent there. Later, he was transferred to Bergen-Belsen. Boris, however, was strong and survived the war. He was liberated from Bergen-Belsen by British forces on the 14th of April 1945. He returned to the Soviet Union, where, as someone who had been deported to Nazi Germany, was treated with suspicion and had to undergo more NKVD invigilation. He was enlisted to the Soviet Army for 5 years. Afterwards, he began to play an active part in institutions that commemorate the Hitler-Nazi crimes, acting for several years as Vice President for Ukraine on the International Committee at the Buchenwald-Dora Memorial Foundation. He attended several commemorative events at the camp's former site and had been invited to attend an event marking the liberation of Buchenwald to be held in April 2022. In 2015, he read out the Oath of Buchenwald, a survivor's pledge dating back to the camp's liberation. This he read out in his native language, Russian. Our goal is to build a new world of peace and freedom, he read. He lived in a Kharkov apartment block with his son and grandchild. On the 18th of March 2022, Boris unfortunately came to a violent end. The man who had survived a string of National Socialist camps was murdered by the Nazi regime of the 21st century. The apartment block where he lived was bombarded by either a rocket or a bomb, which killed him. His apartment was burned out. This is an act of terrorism, and even if a war had been declared, this would be a war crime. It is hitting a civilian area which clearly has no military application whatsoever. Noting the criminal character of Putin's fascism, the German parliament held a moment of silence, not only for Boris, but for all the victims in today's equivalent of Hitler's Nazis. That was on the 22nd of March 2022. If, in conclusion, I may now quote the words of Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, referring to the sad irony of Boris's death. Just imagine how much he went through. He survived Buchenwald, Dora, Peenemünde and Bergen-Belsen, the conveyors of death created by the Nazis. And he was killed by a Russian shell that hit an ordinary Kharkiv high-rise. With every day of this war, it becomes more and more obvious what they, that is to say, Putin's fascists, mean by denazification. Thank you for listening to this story, which I have had to write in some speed because of it's a news event at the time of me doing this. Boris's place of birth has been given as Bondare, and this is in every reference I've seen to him. I've been unable to actually confirm this. Not only that, I don't know and cannot find a Bondare in the vicinity of Sumi. There was a Bondare, is a Bondare in Ukraine today, but that Bondare is near Rivne in Ukrainian, which was in Poland before the war. So maybe the name changed, or which is quite common, or it's been absorbed by the town and is now a district. But in any case, I would like to make that one clear. And at the time of doing this, I'm unable to give an answer, but should I have an answer later, I will put that in the comments section. Thank you very much for listening, and let's hope that this conflict in Ukraine ends soon.